Welcome, everybody, to All Things Rex Worldwide. My special guest today is Mr. Mark Metcalf. He's an actor. You've seen him in so many different movies. One of the main movies you might remember him from is as Needlemeyer in Animal House. He was the master in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. And of course, he was the maestro on Seinfeld. So we're so glad to have him here today. Also, please remember that every Thursday we stream live and record this live stream at 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page. We also stream from LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, and elsewhere. And the show will be available in replay in all of those areas or on those platforms, as well as on Roku TV. So thank you for being here today. You can leave comments and ask questions and share the show for other people from the Los Angeles Tribune page. So without any further ado, let me bring on our guest, Mr. Mark Metcalf. He's done so many different things. His career spanned 50 years, and he's here today. Mark, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually well in the midst of disease everywhere we look.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I'm glad that you're well, and I'm glad that you're uh, in the midst of disease, but untouched by it.
So far, I mean, none of us are untouched by it and never will be. There is no normal, and there's no new normal, I'm afraid. Sorry to say. But I've not had the disease. My brother's had it. My son and I, who we all three live together, have been so far immediate. We haven't had any immediate contact with that little bugger, but it's all over. So my life's been changed by it, certainly.
Well, I've known many people who have survived it in the most egregious, disease possible. I mean, the most devastating, manner of getting through something that's just absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And then I've had many, many people die of it.
Yeah, me too.
And my family has been touched by it. I have not, but I've had so many people who have been touched by it, and my hearts go out to all of any of them. And but I'm glad, to say I'm happy that that we can be here together, and you can say, we have no direct um, experience with it, so I'm happy to say the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're lucky.
So, Mark, you are. Let me just jump right into the
Sure.
thing. You've been acting and making movies now for
50 years, as you said. Yeah,
century, yeah.
I became a member of Actors Equity in 1970 in Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Rep. In fact,
how did you get there?
I'd gone to college as an engineer at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. In my sophomore year, my roommate said, "Come audition for a play. They're doing the 3 parts of Henry VI. The girls are really friendly in the theater department." So that sounded like my cue. So I went and auditioned. I got cast in I think 15 different parts in the 3 parts of Henry VI, uncut, that we did, and 13 of them had lines. All of them had makeup changes and costume changes. I made sure of that. I did lots of stuff, and I kind of got bit by the bug. And as they say, I ran off with the circus and stayed in the theater. And I got to Milwaukee because it was, let's see, I graduated in 68. The Vietnam War was still going. They wanted me because I no longer had a deferment. So I hid out. I went on the lam and went to Los Angeles or San Francisco first to find a better quality of acid. But a week before I got to Haight-Ashbury, 2 kids had died because somebody had sold them acid that was actually Drano. So the summer of love was over. I'd been misinformed. I thought it was the summer of 1968. It was 1967. I was a year late. And so I went to LA, and then I ended up in Oregon. I ended up on Mount Hood, and tried to get out of America into Canada to escape the draft, but they wouldn't let me in because I was too crazy. And so I went back and got out of the draft, and then went back to Ann Arbor, and did some plays there, and went to an audition in Chicago that the TCG Theater Communications Group put on, these massive auditions where 500 young actors from undergraduate schools and graduate schools would go and audition in front of as many regional theater directors and casting directors as would show up, and a good deal showed up in that must have been 1970 or 69, 70 probably. And I got cast as for a full season at the Milwaukee Rep, playing great parts like Orlando and As You Like It, Tony in You Can't Take It With You, Tony Kirby, the Liar in The Liar and the Goldoni play, a whole bunch of parts in Spoon River Anthology. And I spent the next 6 or 8 months there, a winter. It was my first winter in Wisconsin. With the wind off the lake, and I lived up across from the police department in Milwaukee, and every morning I could smell out my window the smell of hops from the Pabst Brewery and chocolate from the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory and sausage from the Usinger's Sausage Factory. And it was a great time. I love Milwaukee.
The first time I drove into Milwaukee, I smelled the tannic acid from the tanneries.
Oh.
Holy cow, how do people survive this? And then when I actually moved here, by that time it was over. I guess they got rid of them or something, but for years I would come and go, like every month I was flying
in. Year, when did you move to Milwaukee?
I started coming in 87, I think.
Okay.
And then I settled down, where I got a house and stuff in 97. But between that I was pretty nomadic and would come and go.
Yeah, I thought most of the tanneries were gone by that time, but I know what you might have been smelling was them cleaning it up, because that whole river bottom area which is now Potawatomi developed it,
right?
And there's a bunch of other things in it, was sort of off limits because the cleanup from those tanneries was so expensive.
Now, when did you come back to Milwaukee?
I came back in 1999.
Well, that must be the time that we met, right around that time, or around the film festival, I think, one of the Milwaukee film festivals.
Could have been. I came back because I wanted to get out of LA. My wife was from Milwaukee, Libby Wick, and we decided, she ran restaurants for a living. We had a son who was 6 at the time, I think. Excuse me. No, he was 5. And we bought a restaurant up in Mequon,
right,
which is still there, Libby, Montana, for anybody who is looking for a good fish fry in Wisconsin. It's still a great restaurant, and she runs it. We're divorced. What?
She still runs it?
She still runs it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a glutton for punishment, is what she is.
They still do the volleyball there?
3 indoor heated sand volleyball courts, a really great fish fry, pot pies. Well, I don't know if they do the pot pies. I wanted to do, when I was there, we did a pot pie, like steak and kidney or beef and Guinness, and what do we do? Artichoke, duck and artichoke, I think, or something. Duck and cherry. We did lots of English style pot pies on Saturday nights, and prime rib.
So I never saw you in a play until I saw you at the Brumner Mansion with Cotter Smith.
Oh, when we did Betrayal.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think it was Betrayal.
Yeah. Well, I know Cotter and I, and what's his wife's name?
Oh my God.
We did Cast. I can't remember.
I can't remember it either.
They're in New York now. We did Betrayal at their little theater.
No, it was I don't think it was Betrayal, but it was at the Brumner, and that wasn't Cotter and his wife kind of spent time at the Brumner. They did turn the downstairs into the theater. Is in that?
Yeah, well, that's where we did Betrayal. Maybe something else. I think that's the only thing I did there. I saw 12 Angry Men there, a really nice production.
That's right. They did that. That's true.
Yeah, it was a nice little theater.
So you are there are people who have been Michelle. There have been people who've already said, I love the Animal House, or I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so for those people, let's jump into
Sure.
Buffy and Angel, for the very reason that you had a lot of makeup on those. The people wouldn't recognize you.
I hope not. Somebody came up to me when I worked the floor in at Libby, Montana. When I was working there, I did the host and seated people, and somebody came up to me and said, "Weren't you the guy in Buffy the Vampire Slayer?" And he made it seem as though he'd recognized me, and he knew the name, but I was so depressed because he recognized me. Because I had 5 hours worth of makeup at the beginning of the season. It took 5 hours to put the master's makeup on, because they put the foam on, they glued everything in place, the neck, 2 ears, a bald cap, and the face, and then they painted it because they weren't sure exactly what they wanted the camera to see, what colors, and so we would paint it, and that was great because it was very collaborative. They let me comment, and you can see, if you binge watch the first season, you can see the coloring developing until where I have what Buffy refers to as my punch bowl mouth, which looks like I've just been sucking blood from people's necks for 800 years, which is what how long the master had been a vampire. And it took an hour and a half to take the makeup off. By the end of the season, they had it down to 3.5 hours because they'd figured out what they wanted to look like. So they painted it first and then put it on, and then they would just touch it up.
So for those who do not know, can you describe that kind of, you show up on the set, you've got a call time, you get into makeup at it, shortly thereafter, you're now in 5.5 hours worth of makeup. Is after they got the prosthetics, the pieces and everything, was it always 5.5 hours to get into it throughout the?
No, it was 5.5 hours probably for the first 4 or 5 episodes until they figured out how to paint it, and then they painted it beforehand, and then they would put it on, and then it was only 3.5 hours. By the end of the season, I'd say the last 3 or 4 episodes, we were down to 3.5 hours putting it on.
Well, still 3.5 hours. Pardon me?
My call would be 4:00 or 4:30. Nobody else was there except me and the makeup.
You're talking afternoon or morning?
Or in the morning. And I was driving in from, I lived up in Port Hueneme at the time.
Okay. Wow.
I was driving in from there. So it was an early start. And I did a couple of 22-hour days because what they did, Michael Gull.
Michael. Hi, Michael.
His movie, Michael Gull's movie, what's it called? Cactus Jack.
Oh my God.
Which people can see. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. I've seen the trailer, and I've known, you and I have known Michael forever, and Jason Thornton and Chris who directed and produced the movie, and Sidney Sherman, and I mean, just amazing movie. Scary.
Yeah, it really is. It's a stunning thing to watch. It's frightening, and you kind of want to shoot the TV or shoot the screen sometimes. But it's very good. Great performance by Michael too. So.
Oh God, yeah, indeed.
So where was I? What was I talking about?
You were driving in from Port Hueneme, and for your call time at 4:30.
And so I did a couple of 22-hour days.
Right.
Which is a long day. Oh, because what they did, because it took so long to put the makeup on, and that meant they had to have they had 2 makeup people on to do it, and and they had me. They shot everything that the master did and everything that required this makeup in 2 or 3 days. So I didn't work the whole 7-day or 6-day shoot of an hour TV show. Usually takes 6 days. Yeah. You work from Monday through till Friday, and then you're off for the weekend, and you come in and shoot on Monday, sometimes Tuesday. It may be different now, and they're all different, but that's what the schedule was there. But they would shoot me in 2 or 3 days, so they didn't have to do it all the time. So in those 2 or 3 days, I was there a long time. I had to shoot everything. I keep reading these things at the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, and there have been some questions too that we've let go. Well, we'll come back and get the questions. And
But in terms of what Michelle's comment, 2.5 hours to 5 hours, and then you still had to act. The wonderful thing about the way that foam is that they do now with prosthetics, it's so thin, it picks up a lot of facial gesture, more than most face masks they did there. I did Star Trek Voyager also, and that was a full covered makeup, covered my head, but it was a face mask that had been built for a 7-foot guy, so it was all pulled together at the back of my head so it fit my head, and it was a fully a quarter of an inch to a half an inch thick.
wow.
And no gesture, no expression showed up at all. But on the Buffy stuff, it showed up right there. And all this, and I couldn't talk while they were putting this makeup on. I mean, at the beginning, I could say, try it over there, try this color. But I had to pretty much be quiet because they were painting and I needed to be still. So I used that 5 hours as a meditation to sort of drag me down underground into the master's mindset, if a vampire can be considered that.
That's a great point. If a vampire can be,
Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, but I mean, to Michelle's point, you've driven in. It's taking you hours. You get to your call. You then sit for 3.5 hours in makeup. Five or so
Right.
to start. Now you have your work day cut out for you, which typically you're in studio, so you have an 8-hour day or 12-hour day.
It was all on studio. At the little studio, I don't know what it's called down in Santa Monica. Yeah. So it's you're there all the time. And as you know, as anybody who's worked on movies know, 10% of the time you're there, you work, and 80% of the time you wait, and another 10% of the time you eat. I couldn't eat. You eat at craft service. I couldn't eat because I didn't want to mess up the makeup, and I don't like to eat when I'm working anyway. It keeps the fear up, as Chris Walken used to say. Excuse me. And yeah, so you're stuck. So I sat in my room and I'd listen to not Gregorian chants, but some chants that some monks did that sort of, again, to help me sort of sink down deeper into that the lake that the master lived under, and just it's hurry up and wait, like Teresa says. You hurry up and wait. The funniest thing about this makeup and about hurrying up and waiting was I also drink a lot of water, and I had to drink through a straw. But consequently, when I'm working, just because I don't want to get dehydrated, and I had these long nails on, so I couldn't undo my pants to go to the bathroom. So I had to go to wardrobe and get a young woman from wardrobe. That was all they had there, was women, to come and help me go to the bathroom. That was fun and interesting, but that was the funny thing about being in 5 hours worth of makeup. The nails were actually the hardest thing to live with because they were glued on, and they would pull my own nail. If I caught on it, I'd be very careful about my nails. I had to watch my nails. Yeah, I don't know how those women who do, and men, and they, whatever pronouns we're using, I don't know how they do it where they have those huge long acrylics on. I don't know how they do jobs.
My daughter has nails a lot of different times, the glue on or press on or whatever. And I don't know the allure of it. She likes them, but I'm like, to me, I wouldn't be able to scratch my face or eyes or anything. So,
yeah.
So
picking your nose goes right out the window.
That may be a good thing, but the Cindy asks, what made you decide to become an actor? And I want to come back to the Buffy thing because because we still are in your day, and we get to the conclusion of your day. But let's segue for a second to answer Cindy's question about.
Well, as I said earlier when I was talking about going to school in Ann Arbor, the thing that got me into the theater and got me interested in the theater and got me acting in the beginning was the fact that I was told that the girls were really friendly in the theater department, and I was at the time in the engineering department, and there weren't any. women in the
I
engineering
hate to
world.
say this, you're as gullible as I was. I thought being an actor, I would have all these women, wanting me, and it turned out that they wanted musicians. They didn't want actors, especially if you lived in Hollywood.
Oh, well, you had a different experience than I did.
Oh,
I
okay.
was one of the lucky ones, I guess. But
Congratulations.
I never decided to do it as a career, as a job. I didn't even think of the word career. The whole time I was in New York, I didn't think of it as a career. I just thought of it as this really fun job that they paid me money for. And I didn't really think of it as something I would do. I was really just trying to have fun and trying to have as much fun as I could. Um, and I think I was getting paid well for it and doing things all the way up to doing Animal House, which was 1977, after I'd been in New York for 6 years, when I began to realize that I was 30 now and uh, had my future not laid out in front of me until I decided what I wanted to be. And I decided I didn't want to just, I guess that's when I decided that I was an actor, that people could call me an actor. And even after that, John Hurd, a great friend of mine and a wonderful actor, once noticed when he and I were out to dinner at somebody's house, and they said, "So what do you do, Mark?" And I said, "Well, I work as an actor." And John said, "Wow, you're the first person I've ever heard that says I work as an actor. Most people say I am an actor." And I thought about it. I thought, well, I'm not an actor. I'm just a schmuck. Uh, but the work I do is as an actor. So I was always appreciated the fact that John pointed that out to me.
So before we come back to the Buffy
Right.
set day, Teresa Chaz has been is a producer, and she asked two questions. One is, are you still producing? And two, what kind of roles are you looking for?
Am I looking for?
If
I'm
you're
not.
okay.
Right. I'm not. I'm not. I am producing. I am. If you're a producer, you know I'm in the midst of, which means for 5 years I've been pushing this, what I think is a really great idea and a good script, called The Roberts, based on a graphic novel by Justin Shady, who's a friend of mine out of Milwaukee, now in Chicago, and not Eric Roberts, Eric Rose wrote this graphic novel called The Roberts, which is about two serial killers in a nursing home, who at the end of their days in their 80s, late 70s, early 80s, find each other in a nursing home and sort of sense that the other one they have something in common, and they circle each other for a while, and then they finally acknowledge each other. One of them was the Boston Strangler, and the other one was the Zodiac Killer when they were active. And this, we want to leave this up to the audience, or they weren't, and they just think they were.
Wonderful.
So that leaves that sort of enigmatic feeling around there. And since they acknowledge, then they have to, in a typical male way, they have to test each other. So they decide to kill somebody, and they can't really determine who they want to try to kill. They want to see who can kill them first. They're not strong enough to kill the people they really want to kill, like the guys who take care of them and who are so horribly, ridiculously stupid. And they can't kill the one guy in the nursing home who was a real bully. So they decide to kill Grace, who is an Alzheimer's patient who escapes from the Alzheimer's wing and comes over to their wing all the time and comes up to everybody and says, "Leonard, are you ready for your breakfast now?" And and everybody who knows her has learned to say, "Yes, thank you, Grace. I'll have breakfast." And Grace will go, "All right, I'll have it ready in a minute." And then she turns around, and the next person she sees, she says, "Leonard, are you ready for your breakfast now?" That's the nature of her dementia. And so they decide to kill her because she's little and weak and won't put up a fuss, and she's sweet. And that's the movie. But obviously, myself and my partner, Elliot Lewitt, who's really more of a producer, I just put up the money and found the script and put it together with the writer. And Bruce Dern has expressed an interest in doing it. Richard Dreyfuss has said he wants to do it, but we're trying to find some money. So if you happen to have $2 million, that's all we need.
Send it your way.
Yeah, just give me a call.
Well, yeah, and you never know. Maybe someone will. That's very cool.
It might. That's true. That's true. Oh yeah. Oh, Teresa. Am I supposed to read all this?
No, you're not necessarily. She said we'll be breaking stereotypes in front of behind the camera. Would you like to know more?
Yeah, I'm always interested in diversity, and I'm always interested in all that stuff that you're trying to do. So sure, but now's not the time to have a conversation.
Right, we'll take care of it off camera. But very cool. But so that sounds like an exciting project, and you're producing, and you've directed, and you direct.
I've directed plays. I haven't directed any films. I've directed plays.
No, didn't you direct shorts? Didn't you? Or oh wait,
no, I produced all of those. When I worked for Milwaukee Film and ran a program, the one that you're alluding to, called Collaborative Cinema in Milwaukee, where we basically took professional film people, actors, directors, producers, writers, technicians, and we worked with high school students while they developed an idea of their own and helped them build it expand it through a series of workshops, expand it into a short film, a script for a short film. Then we would pick the best one, in our estimation, the most producible one, and we would produce it. I think you, Rex, acted in one called Ward 3.
And I was in the pilot program. What is She Never Screams, that Fitzsimmons, Jeff?
Oh, that Jeff directed. Okay. You were in that one. That was the first one. Yeah. With Dave Beagle. Is Dave Beagle still around?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
He was a great guy. I should reach out to him. He used to write for the what's the name of the paper there in Milwaukee?
Journal Sentinel?
Journal Sentinel, right. Yeah. When I was first there in 1971, I think there was the Journal and the Sentinel.
And there were two different papers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I ran that program for 3 or 4 years, developed it, grew it, started it really with Jeff. It was Jeff's idea, and I took it and sort of built it out, and used a lot of teachers and students from Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, which has a great film department, and Jeff Kurz, who was a local producer, who helped us with it, and a lot of it. We pulled a lot of people together, and it was a really nice community, and it was a nice focal point for people, especially people who had come through the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee Film School, which focuses primarily, and in those days exclusively, on experimental film. Right. But these guys longed to do narrative, and we were only interested in doing narrative films. So we did, I don't know how, I think we did 5 or 6 different shorts I produced, but I didn't direct any of them. I just produced them.
One of my favorite ones, I believe you were still there. I don't remember when you left, and I could be wrong, with a vampire one. Were you still involved with that, or was it?
No, Susan? I think I was gone by then.
So it was Susan. But well, you sure had a nice run. You were kind of like the face of the Milwaukee Film Festival, and Jeff Kurz came from Los Angeles and came back here and was pretty. I mean, we have a lot of.
Still there, is Jeff still around?
I believe so. Yeah, he was when I was at the school. I mean, I haven't been teaching since 2015 or whatever it was, or 16. But he was part of the Milwaukee, the university at that time.
University, okay, right.
And there's other people who are either in and out of town. We're going to have to take a short commercial break, essentially, for the Los Angeles Tribune, which has been kind enough to ask me to do this show. And
Sure.
and so we're going to pause for about 30 seconds while the Los Angeles Tribune brings you this.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We have earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And we're back with you, Mr. Mark Metcalf. So just to continue this a little bit, now that, I mean, those 30 seconds of watching the commercial there was a couple of other films, because, we would oftentimes volunteer as crew members or help the productions. And there was one about, I forget who did it. Oh, she and her husband, Kathy. No. About a refrigerator, something in the refrigerator.
That was that. I think there was a
Karen.
Oh, Karen. That was one of our films.
That's what I mean. It was one of the collaborative ones. And then there was
Karen Ringholz. I can't remember how to pronounce her name. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and Karen did that. And then it was the other one. Was Kathy Fisher? Did Kathy Fisher do one for you?
She did a short film that I was in. I was naked in a bathtub with crazy hair and a martini glass.
Yeah, that wasn't How Not to Kill Everyone, was it? With Larry Thomas?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was How Not to Kill Everyone.
And Larry Thomas is, of course, the soup Nazi, and
right.
You're the maestro on Seinfeld. So
right. Yeah, I'd forgotten that. I think Kathy won an award for who's the guy who runs the little film festival there? Ross Bigley.
Right. She won probably one from Ross, but the guy. Oh man.
Spit it out.
Ramis edited that film for her.
Harold Ramis?
Harold Ramis, yeah, out in California, I believe, was their editing facility. She had the
Kathy? Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that Harold did that.
Harold came up and was a guest at the film festival. I got John Landis to come out from LA once for them and for the festival, and Harold came up one time too.
I think there's a photo of you and me and Harold.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So this is great, Mark. So this behind the scenes back into Buffy just for the time being. Then I'd like to talk about Seinfeld maybe a little bit and other things as well. But because so that people have an understanding, you've driven to get to the set. You can't eat. You can't undo your own fly. You're in this prosthetics. You've got 3.5 hours that you sit there. Now you're on call for at least a minimum of 8 hours, where, as you aptly described, 10% of it you actually work and the rest is waiting or eating. The first movie I ever shot professionally as a SAG actor, I just wanted to cry. I mean, I was in my trailer the whole day. They wouldn't even let me sit watch the camera. They were just like, go to your trailer and wait. And I waited, I think, like 7 hours in this little tiny, dressing room, going, oh, geez, And I just was like, wow, because I had made lots of non-union movies before that, and we never had trailers. We never had anything. You just did what you did. And so suddenly I'm now sitting in a trailer waiting to be called, and then I'm called. Right. And I was like, I hope everybody gets to make a movie, because it's not that much fun. But yet that's what I love about it, is when the camera is on, you have to think on your feet. And that's when you get 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute or two to act. And the rest of the time is sitting around.
It's sitting around, and somehow you have to hold on to whatever nugget or kernel or of the character that you are, because you've got to be ready when they say action. You have to be ready to go. You have to be there in character. I mean, some people spend a lot of time at the craft service table talking and schmoozing, and there's great filmmakers. Excuse me. Excuse me. Filmmakers, everybody who makes films, are some of the smartest, best storytelling, fun people to be around. I can't do that. I like to be in my trailer alone, reading or listening to music, or somehow just bringing myself deeper into it. I mean, I know what you mean about wanting to cry, but it can be a boon. It's a private time. It's a meditation. It's a time to. Elliot Gould, they say, used to just play poker all the time.
You learn to occupy yourself in different ways, and I think everybody has have come to it in different ways.
Yeah.
I just forgot what I was going to ask you or say.
I don't know.
Well,
More about Buffy?
You were the master. You should know what I was about to say.
I know. I should be able to read your mind.
You should read my mind.
Yeah, I don't. I was the master. I'm not anymore.
This is true. So,
From the master to the maestro. That was used to be that somebody. Gail Strickland used to told me that should have been the name of my autobiography if I ever wrote it. From the master to the maestro, because I played the master one year, and then the next year I played the maestro.
I think you could still do that.
Yes, I could still write it.
You can still do that. I just had what I was going to say to you. I had a guy come up to me. You and I both cut our teeth when there was no Video Village,
right?
And then Video Village came along, and I don't know if it changed much for you. For me, the last thing I did was a couple years ago, where since they've got you on camera, they're always constantly adjusting you for the shot, which is in the old days, they look through a viewfinder, you did your thing, and then look through the viewfinder again to see if it started and ended in the right places, and then went to look at the dailies a day, that day or later,
right? And
then came back and they either printed the one they were lucky or they had to reshoot. Where now they just kind of constantly adjust. And this actor walked up to me afterwards and said, "I don't know how you do this." He said, "I can't do that. They're constantly interrupting me. It blows my concentration. They'll say, stand here. Oh, can you move here? Oh, cut, wait, move that." Yeah. He said, I'm about ready to give up acting. Yeah. This is a guy who I watch and I admire. And I'm like, I don't give up acting, because you're great. So, right. But I mean, he was very complimentary, but the point is that there's a lot of stuff that is required of actors today in the digital age, as was back in the old days. But
yeah, today you may act to a bunch of white dots on somebody's face, or on a sock held on the end of a stick. That's the dragon that's up there that you're talking to. Yeah, no, it's I don't know. I haven't had to do any of that stuff because I walked away in 2000 and didn't go back. I mean, I kept doing low budget independent movies, which, as you alluded to earlier, are still done in lots of cases the old-fashioned way. They don't have all that money for a Video Village. They can watch it right away again on digitally and see if they got what they wanted. But they're also under time constraints. Time costs money, and if you don't have any money, you got to move quickly. So you've got to improvise. And I love working that way. So I haven't had to work. Have I ever had? A couple of Buffy episodes. Near the end, I had to do some green screen stuff, but for the most part, I've avoided it. But you're right; it's your meat basically. You're just a two-dimensional being in a movie, and that's why when I quit in 2000, when I walked away and bought a restaurant in Wisconsin, I thought I was quitting, but Rob Goodman down at First Stage Children's Theater, who was the artistic director at that time, he's now retired, had seen me do a play in New York called Streamers by David Rabe at Lincoln Center. And he found out I was living in town and came to my restaurant, and he asked me if I wanted to do a play for him. And I said, I don't really want to. I quit the business. And he said, well, this is a play called Einstein, Hero of the Mind, and we do it for children at the Children's Theater. And I said, well, I certainly don't want to do a play with ghosts and goblins for kids. And he said, well, read this play. It's you and a 14-year-old girl and 47 puppets, which will be run by 6 actors.
Wow.
And I read it, and it was great. It took Einstein from the time he was 7 years old, and people thought he was slow because he stammered and couldn't really talk, all the way up through the bomb on Hiroshima, and 2 years after that, where Einstein spent pretty much every day of his life in Princeton, sitting in a rowboat in a lake, trying to figure out what his complicity was in this horrendous war device. That his science, he hadn't been part of the project, but he had written a letter to Roosevelt and saying, you should develop this energy as a weapon. And it was his science that allowed them to do it. So it looked at Einstein. honestly and truthfully. And we did it for kids, and kids loved it. And their grandparents were astonished that we actually talked about the Holocaust in front of their grandchildren. But
Wow.
it's amazing what kids can understand and should be allowed to understand and hear about when they're young. Anyway, that started me working again as an actor on stage live. And as Ava says right there, she says, I wish I could see it. But that's the wonder and the magic and the mystery of theater is you've got to be there to see it. You can't stream it at 2:00 in the morning when you can't fall asleep. You've got to do it. It's far preferable for an actor like myself to do live theater, to feel that thing right in front of you.
I have a number of friends, I'm sure you do too, but I have a number of friends who are quite famous who cannot watch themselves on film. And I'm like, why did you go into theater? Why did you go into the movie business where you end up on film?
They pay you well in the movie.
It's true.
And the food's better. And as Marilyn Chambers, one of my favorite lines in all movies, Marilyn Chamber in Behind the Green Door, a pornography movie, somebody says it must be lonely at the top. She says, yeah, but the food's better. So they pay you better and the food's better. Yeah, the first time I ever saw myself on screen, I vomited.
Oh, really?
And that was in college, and I had to run to the bathroom and throw up. The second time I ever saw myself on screen, which was a short called The Garden Party from a Catherine Mansfield short story that Jack Shoulder directed, I got an erection. So it goes both ways.
It spans the gamut.
And I don't watch myself anymore.
Well, I want to say, I want to come back to Seinfeld in a moment, but you played one of the most vile, creepy, fascinating, wonderfully disturbing characters in the short Prone that you and I were in, directed by Chris Carter.
I don't remember that one.
You don't remember it. It's about you have the scenes. I think you shot the scenes, if memory serves me, at the pump house down on Michigan.
Oh, that then became a coffee shop.
Yeah, but you shot it there, and you're a sexual predator. You're trying to hit on this woman.
Oh yeah.
But you just beautifully disturbing character in that. I mean, it's just amazing.
Good.
You know,
when you described that character, I thought you were going to talk about Little Red, which is a feature that I did with Tate Bunker,
right.
Well, that too. A guy that most people think is pretty disturbing and creepy.
Right, directed by Tate Bunker.
Tate Bunker, exactly.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And that was the story. So but yeah, I'd forgotten about. Well, the reason I remember Prone because I was in Prone, and it showed up at the Wildwood Film Festival up in Appleton.
Oh, okay.
And a director friend of mine saw the thing, and because I play an addiction therapist in the thing, and he was sitting behind me. He's like, "Oh my God," and he was very happy with what I did and everything. Well, then they took the film back and cut me out. Essentially, I mean, you don't even see me. I was like, because I said, "Oh, I got to use this for my reel." It never. But you, I mean, that both Little Red and in this, you both play a very disturbing predator, like.
Apparently, I that's what I get cast as. I mean, I either get cast as Niedermeyer or disturbing child molesters.
I hear you. I now get cast as alcoholics and priests, and
There's I think it's wonderful because it's all about me. A short documentary called Character, that's on the New Yorker. We made it independently. A woman, wonderful, great woman. It was a good friend named Vera Brunner Sung. When I lived in Ohio at OSU, she teaches there, and she made it. And she wanted to do features. She wanted to do narratives. So she wanted to talk to an actor so that she could learn how to talk about actors. And we were introduced by a mutual friend who lives in Missoula, Montana, where I had lived. And we got to talking, and it was a good conversation. We talked, and then she decided she wanted to record it. So we talked for 5 hours. And she recorded just audio for 5 hours so she could go back to it. And then she decided she wanted to make a short film based on certain threads that were in this, that I carried through in this 5 hours of talking. And it was like this interview that I'm doing with you, where she would ask a question and I would talk for a long time. And then she would ask another question. I would talk for a longer time. And, but she found a thread, about 17 minutes of dialogue through here that, or my monologue, that she put together and made this film called Character. And you can now watch it on the New Yorker has a YouTube channel, I believe.
And there's a banner ticker below running that says, check out Mark Metcalf on YouTube. And it has a.
Yeah. And it's just about to drive. It hasn't dropped already. It drops today or tomorrow on some film festival called Sikes, P-S-Y-C-H-E, Sikes Film Festival. And there's a nice essay there, as there is in the New Yorker, about it. So it's out there. It played at Sundance. It played at Big Sky in Missoula, Montana. It played a lot of film festivals, and then COVID hit, and it's out there. But the thread that she picked up is me talking about being typecast as Niedermeyer, as the character in which a lot of people, you don't have any hair, Rex, so you probably weren't a fan of the hair band Twisted Sister, but there are a lot of people, I think more people saw the Twisted Sister video that I did than have seen anything I've ever done.
Wow.
Because it ran every 5 minutes on MTV when MTV was just starting out. And it's basically the same character I was in Animal House. And she talks about, and I talk about, and she has designed this film. So it's about the appeal of being typecast, as it says right there on the crawl down below. But it's a good documentary. I recommend it. I think there's more to it than just the appeal of being typecast. But because at one point, the way we shot it, she recorded this and then she had to come up with some video for it. She had audio, she had to come. So we designed all these scenes that sometimes scenes that would reflect the typecasting and the characters that I'm known for, Niedermeyer, the Master, and the Maestro, these sort of evil characters. It opens with me, my own description of what the Master lives with, but all authoritarians live with the same disease of the mind. And then it gets into, my views on authoritarians. And then she thought at one point, because you're talking about playing an asshole all the time, I don't want you to come off as an asshole. So she had talked to me about parenting and my son came in and we did a couple of shots just with me and myself. And my son's a very cool guy who I live with. He's on the spectrum. He feels like he needs me around to be comfortable and safe. He's getting far beyond that. He's now a 2L in law school at Lewis and Clark, the best environmental law school in the country, and on Animal Law Review, and there's going to be a lawyer at some point in a kind of year and a half. And so very successful, very high functioning. A lot of people, I sometimes say, on the spectrum. And unfortunately, people flip back about 30 years and think and it is on the autism spectrum. But what we know now is that autism stretches a long way. From the poor kid who's drooling in the corner, to Bill Gates, who apparently has Asperger's. So we read he has Asperger's, which is now they call it on the spectrum. But anyway, my son Julius is very high functioning, and he's in the movie, but she redeems. So it's a good movie. I recommend it to a lot of people, not just because it's about me, but because Vera has done a very interesting job of putting this thing together. Well,
that's absolutely fascinating. I think I definitely want to look it up and will. So I've got my viewing cut up for me.
A lot of actors have come up to me after they saw it either in Sundance or saw it on YouTube, have contacted me through Facebook or through something else and said, and thanked me for talking as candidly and openly about the business and the way the way you can allow yourself to be manipulated by the business. The business isn't an evil entity all by itself that goes out and manipulates people, but it's easy to allow yourself to be manipulated by the show business.
Wow, I mean, it opens up a whole other area of conversation here.
Indeed, it does.
Let me ask you this: do you, when I was a young actor, filled with BS and ego and everything else, as young actors often are, no matter what age they are, they tend to go, "I don't want to be typecast." And
right.
turned to me one day and said, wish to God you were typecast, because those
well,
people.
that's what you want to do in LA is you want to niche out. We used to call it. You find your niche. If you're overweight, even if it's unhealthy, don't lose weight, because there's not a lot of fat guys who are funny.
I got to share this with you. I had ballooned up, and the reason I ballooned up was because I'd always been thin, and I wanted to feel what it was like to kind of walk and stomp and make the ground rumble when I did. So I put on a bunch of weight, and I met with a very prominent casting director. And he said, "I'm going to tell you what, I want you to get headshots. This is what I want you to do." I mean, he was a friend of mine. So he's like, "Here's what I want you to do. Go out and get these kind of pictures, send them to me. I'll look at them, and I'll." I said, "Great." So he I then went back. We got a burger somewhere. He's looking at the photos, and he goes, "Oh, that's great. We need good fat guys." And I said, "Wait a second. Did you hear what you just said?" He said, "What?" I said, "You called me a fat guy." He goes, "Get over it. We need good fat guys."
Yeah.
And I was like, but I was shocked that anybody, and at that moment I was like, but that has stuck in my head almost as this calling card of don't lose weight. We need good fat guys. And I'm like, I think they need good skinny guys too. So
they do. They need good skinny guys. They need good fat guys. They need all the guys. Bald guys, guys with too much hair.
But you make an interesting point. I mean, that's why I bring that up. But
the typecasting goes. The lack of imagination of casting directors and directors is really the point of it. I was in a casting director, a well-known casting director, whose name I can't remember right now. That's how well-known she was, in New York. And we were talking about, she was talking to me about there was a possibility that somebody was going to do a biopic on John Wayne. And she was talking to me about that, whether I'd be able to play or willing to play or interested in playing John Wayne. And somebody called her, she took the call, and it was about Lois Smith. Somebody was an agent, Lois Smith's agent, I think, was suggesting Lois Smith. Now, I don't know if you know who Lois Smith is, but Lois Smith is one of the great actresses of the stage and film and television that we've had. I mean, she is just brilliant. She's in right there along with Geraldine Page and a lot of those other women who aren't stunningly beautiful and aren't blonde, but who are just have big hearts and big minds and are full and are good actors and actresses. And she said, "Oh no, Lois can't do it. I just saw her in a movie and she played. She's gotten all old and haggard and she looks terrible." I think the movie was The Verdict. I can't remember, but the casting director, the person who was in charge of putting actors in front of the director and the producer, couldn't see the difference between the dancer and the dance, as Yates puts it, or the actor and the act. They couldn't see that what she saw as old and wasted and sick and not looking good was Lois Smith in the part. And so that's what you deal with, that lack of imagination. And it's tragic.
Well,
it's not tragic at all, but it's sad.
It gets. I mean, we've you've had to encounter this where people say we need a blonde, and they go, "Well, put a wig on her," or we need somebody with long hair. We'll put a wig on them. I mean, sometimes they just can't see past.
I tell the story in this movie character about I was in my agent's, John Kimball, my agent at the time, in his office, because I was looking for work, and I went in to see my agent to say, "Hey, what's going on?" And he got a call, and he said to the person on the call, he took the call, and because I was that kind of actor, I wasn't working, so you take a call. But he said, "I want you to repeat that. I'm going to put it on speakerphone." And the guy who was talking to was a casting director who said, "I need a Mark Metcalf type." And John, with a big smile on his face, said, "Well, I just happen to have Mark Metcalf right here in the office, and he's looking for work." And the guy said, "No. I just want a Mark Metcalf type." And he wouldn't explain why he didn't want me. He just wanted somebody. So I had become a type to him in the matter of a couple of years because of Animal House. This was a couple of years after Animal House. So anyway, but I'm not bitter. Well, I'm not too bitter.
Well, that's such a beautiful story. Oh, I needed Mark Metcalf type.
Yeah.
Run out and find me a 5-year-old child. That's like the Groucho Marx line almost,
Yeah.
I can't make head or tail of it. Wow, that's interesting. Let me do this. I do still want to come back to the Maestro. I do want to do a little bit of Needlemeyer. We are at and Michael Gull asks, would you be interested in playing a well-written character who's on the spectrum?
Would I be into? Oh yeah, I just got fired from a job. Well, it was on the spectrum. Yeah, sure, I could do that.
Michael writes as well as produces as well as acts, and he's definitely a triple threat. I have a feeling his head is turning.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, I just got what I'm interested in doing right now. I just got fired from a job in a movie that was going to shoot in Wisconsin and a little bit in Minnesota, called Good Morning, Miss America, about a couple who've been married for 37 years and dated for 13 years before that. Her second marriage. They're both in their 70s. She had 2 kids when they got married, and she has had a bad fall, broken a hip, and is not confined to a wheelchair, but needs a wheelchair to get around. She's also slipping into dementia, and he is doing his best to take care of her. Here's the part I was playing. Is doing the best to take care of her while he also is slipping into dementia. But in typical male fashion, he's very much in denial about it. And he also has a job to do. He has to take care of his wife, who he refers to as Miss America. And in the midst of them, between the two of them, is her daughter, who is trying to take care of them. She lives in Portland. She comes back and forth. And I was fat. I really wanted to play this part. I loved this part because it talked about aging. It talked about love as it lasts through the years or doesn't, or how you make it last through the years. And it also talked about dementia. So the idea of playing somebody who's slipping into dementia, and the guy also did one of the other things I've always wanted to do on film, is have a heart attack. He has a heart attack and dies at the end after having kidnapped her from the nursing home where they've put her because he can't take care of her anymore in his dementia. So yeah, sure, Michael, I'd play somebody on the spectrum. I got fired. If anybody's interested in why I got fired, as my brother said when I told him I came in, she fired me on a text. My brother said, "Oh, you were directing the director again, huh?" And I think of it as collaboration, but apparently some directors' egos are such that that they don't that they take my version of collaboration as an affront to their ego, and so she and I didn't get along, and so she fired me. And in a way, I dodged. I would have loved to have played the part, but I dodged a bullet because I don't think I could have survived 3 or 4 weeks of working with her. She was starring in it, directing it, producing it, she was a real vanity project. She was doing everything, and she's never made a movie before. So I don't know. We'll see what it turns out.
Yeah.
I hope it turns out terrible.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
Yeah. No, that's one thing I'm not.
But the 2 things now have stood out really from this discussion that we had. One is the food is better at the top, according to Marilyn Chambers. And 2, I've always wanted to do a heart attack. I always wanted to have a heart attack on camera. I mean,
Right.
I've never thought that. I mean, I've never went, oh, yeah.
Oh, listen, Thomas Mitchell used to be one of my favorite character
Yes.
actors of all time, and he's got 3 of the best and longest death scenes in film. One in Destiny Rides Again, one in Only Angels Have Wings, and I can't remember the third one. But great death scenes.
Thomas Mitchell Green. So we're gonna, if it's okay with the people backstage here running the show, I'd like to go long. If that works with you, I'd like to go a little longer.
Yeah, not too much longer though, because I do have some things I've got to
Yeah,
do.
and actually I do too. But I
And
I
one
do
of them is pee, but
and you don't have nails, so you can handle it your own self, right?
yes,
But
exactly.
and but I do want to cover 3 questions. One is what because you've worked with collaborative cinema and the film and helping young filmmakers, both directors, producers, writers, actors, the entire cinematographers.
Right.
You've worked in film, you've worked in theater. What parting words would you have in terms of inspiration or motivation for people to pursue their career, or how they might go about it from a guy who's been in the business for 50 years?
Right. It's it's hard to say. One is don't just do acting. Go get a job as a dishwasher. Go get a job as a construction worker. Go get a job teaching school. Do a lot of different things and hang out with people who do different things. Because one of the problems I find with Hollywood and with movie making and television making and the theater too is that it's very inbred. It's very much about itself. And that's not what it's supposed to be like. You're supposed to hold a mirror up to nature, as Hamlet says. So get out there and experience as much as you can. Take the drug. Rob the 7-Eleven. No, I'm kidding. But have experiences. Scare the bejesus out of yourself as much as you can, because that's how you learn. As Samuel Beckett says, fail better, fail better, fail better. Fail again, fail better. Just keep failing. Keep trying, keep pushing it as hard as you can, and fail again. That's how we learn. We don't learn from success. You learn from failure. You really do.
Truly beautiful and well put, and the injunction just to the idea that just go out and live your life. Yeah. I know that as a young actor we'd sit around and commiserate over coffee and coffee shops all day long talking about acting and film and how we weren't working, instead of actually going out and having fun and living our lives. And to go and live and to have experiences, you bring more to your work anyway. So very good. I don't know what that last comment said, because it appeared and disappeared very quickly, but love the feel better. Oh, there you go. Somebody, very cool. So the last 2 things I want to ask, one is, I said we'd talk about the maestro. So just a little bit about the maestro working non-Seinfeld or with Seinfeld or any of that.
I always say, when everybody asks me that question, I always say it's great to work with millionaires. And it is, because they are not worried about getting beans to their face. And and those guys were all just worried about being creative. And they're best chemistry of any television show I've ever worked on or seen. And a lot of it was because by that time I did it in the 7th season. They were successful. They were making $600,000 every 4 days. Took 4 days to shoot it. Easy. The writing's good. Everybody there respects you, expects you to respect them. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, well, you can see 20-something, 39, when made it in 97, so it's a lot of years later, is still kicking out some of the best work on the screen. Jason, I'd known vaguely in New York because he comes out of musical comedy, comes out of the theater. There's a theater background. He's a wonderful actor to be on stage with. Michael Richards is a little touchy. And Jerry, it just digs actors. He loves it. You can see him. He cracks up all the time at these people because they're so darn funny. And Larry David, who was around because he was a producer and a writer, is a very funny guy and a good guy. So Seinfeld was great. It was good because everything that you need to be good. It's easy to do Chekhov because Chekhov's such a good writer. It's easy to do Shakespeare because Shakespeare is such a good writer. If the writing's good and the people are there and they're listening to each other and watching each other and have some respect for each other, then it's the best job in the world. It's the best job in the world because they don't call them plays for nothing. You play. You get to play all day long.
Oh, that is truly beautiful. And lastly, somebody had asked me about your role as Needlemeyer in Animal House. We could talk about so much more, but one of the questions that I was asked to ask you personally was, did you do your own stunts? Did they back?
I wanted to, because I wanted to be that guy in the bar who says, "Yeah, baby, I do my own stunts." I wanted to be that cool guy, but they wouldn't let me because they still had to shoot me. And you're talking about the drag with the horse.
Yeah.
So Gary,
Well, and or the riding. Did you do your riding? I mean,
I did my own riding. Oh yeah, yeah. When I got cast, I called Landis. The story of me getting cast, I've told this so many times, but I went in to meet Landis and Michael Chinich, who was the casting director out of LA, but he was in New York at the time. I went in to read for the part of Otter, the Tim Matheson part, the part that gets all the girls. I thought, hey, this is going to be fun. And as soon as I walked through the door, Landis looked at me and said, "Do you know how to ride?" And I'd read the script, so I knew what he meant. And I said, "Yeah, of course, do I know how to ride? I was practically born on a horse. My mother's water broke when she was out on a trail ride with my dad on our ranch in Montana. And she slid off my horse. My dad delivered me in the shade of the horse. And he delivered calves. It was nothing to deliver me. And we got back on the horse and rode into town. And Landis looked at me and said, "Right, sure." And I told him 5 more lies about how I knew how to ride. And the next day he called me and said he wanted me to do the part. And I said, "Okay, John, do you think you can get some money from Universal so I can take riding lessons?" So I went up to Claremont Stables in Central Park and learned from this little blonde German woman who had a riding crop that I think I still have bruises from. And I learned how to ride. So I did my own riding. But Gary McClarty did the drag. And I'm glad I didn't do it, because when I went into his trailer afterwards to see how he was, he'd taking off all this padding, and he had a bruise on his buttocks that was like a tattoo of a horse's hoof. It was so explosive because it was a wet field, because it was Oregon, and it's wet in October in Oregon. And when a horse runs on a wet field, it stretches out. It tries to get its center of gravity lower, so it stretches out its stride. So it was running at a slightly different way than Gary had expected. And if you watch the film, you can see he's got his legs crossed on the stirrup, and he's trying to keep himself as far away from that horse as he can while he's still being dragged. But because the horse is stretching out, because it's a wet field, he took one right in the hip.
Ow.
And anyway, that's it. So no, I didn't do my own stunts. And in Final Terror, when I had my genitalia separated from my body at the moment of orgasm, I didn't do that stunt either.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
It's wow, what a relief.
Yeah, I dodged that bullet. That was special effects.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Mark, I can't tell you how good it is to catch up with you and to catch up with you on the show as well. And you've added so much delight and so much color and all sorts of different
I hope it. I mean, you can edit me out, and you can beep over any times if I might have sworn or anything.
No. You've been good. I don't think you swore at all. Mark is an aspiring actor for 50 years, fulfilled more experiences in life, says Lit Magazine Worldwide. Oh, that's so cool. Very cool, Mark.
Thank you very much.
So I want to thank you for being here. We'll say goodbye officially. If you can hang in the green room for just a moment, I'm going to close out the show and tell people who's coming up next and all that kind of stuff. So if you got a moment to stick around, please do. And but thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on the show. It's a pleasure knowing you. And I'm glad that we've got to do this. Thank you for being
here. I'm just going to run to the other room and use the bathroom. And I'll be right
back. Your parting words. I'm going to go to the bathroom.
I'm going to pee. Thanks.
There you go. All right. So I want to thank Mr. Mark Metcalf for being here. I want to thank you for your comments and your questions, for watching the show. And if you like the show, please do like it wherever you see it, wherever it's played. Leave comments after the show, and obviously share the show. Share it to your friends, your family, near and far, on whatever social media platforms you can. I really do appreciate that. My next guest next week is going to be Lydia Cornell. an actress from Too Close for Comfort and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and so many different things. You're going to love Lydia if you don't know who she is. You'll recognize her when you see her. And I'm looking forward to that. And I want to thank Mark Metcalf for being here. I want to thank the people who are running the show behind the scenes. For so long I didn't have anyone behind the scenes. It was very difficult for me to do the show because I'm trying to see this chat, and I'm trying to run the banners, I'm trying to do all these things, and I've got to thank them for the work that they do today. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. So much love and peace and blessings. So, and I would be remiss if I don't tell you about my book, because I always do. It's Life on Your Terms. I think there you go. They'll put up a picture there. And you can get it from my website, www.rexsikes.com/book. And when you go to the website, you actually have to go to Amazon and buy it. But when you go there to Amazon and get it, you take your receipt code back to this website that you see across the bottom. And I will give you a bonus training as a bonus for purchasing the book at Amazon. You'll get a $497 valued. It's been valued at $497 training on mastery, on how you master anything. Your mindset, your feelings, and your behaviors, any talent or skill you want to master, it's worth doing. So for a $20 book or a $30 book, $40 book, whatever it is, you get a $497 bonus training absolutely free. It's my gift to you. Just go to that website, rexsikes.com/book, and get yours today. It'll explain everything right there. All right. And lastly, we record every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. We stream live and record it 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and wherever else it is around the world. So we'll see you next Thursday. Remember, if you consider everything a blessing, then everything is a blessing. And with that in mind, I want to remind you to celebrate everything. I'll see you next time.